address the issue of the slow but nonetheless important topic of the extinction of frogs, not only in Victoria but in the whole nation that is Australia. It may not be widely known or recognised, but it is a massive issue and we need to pay much more attention to it. Australia has many different frog species, with over 200 described and probably more to be discovered. However, Australia's frog populations are declining, as are populations worldwide. For reasons that are as yet unknown, this is a disturbing trend, because the presence of frogs is a good indication of a healthy environment. Frogs are cold-blooded animals, belonging to the group known as amphibians. Usually they start life as tadpoles in an aquatic environment and transport into frogs to become land-based. About 4,000 frog species have been identified worldwide, with 214 known in Australia. Many of Australia's frogs are found nowhere else in the world. Frogs have lungs to breathe, but they also breathe through the skin, through the tiniest of pores that to the human eye are invisible. Despite their need to stay moist, frogs have adapted to an extraordinary range of environments, particularly in Australia. For example, the South Australian water-holding frog spends most of its time underground. When pools dry up, it burrows into sandy ground with a spade on its foot, enclosing itself in a transparent, waterproof cocoon made from layers of shed skin until the next wet period. This may not happen for years. This frog has a unique ability to retain large amounts of water by storing it in the bladder or in the pockets of his skin. Tree frogs have adhesive pads on their toes that act like small suction cups. This allows them to climb almost any surface. Their bodies gleam with a waxy coating to prevent dehydration. Australia's frogs vary in size, from the world's largest tree frog, the wide-lipped frog, which grows up to 135 millimetres, down to the slender-bodied javelin frog, which is only 14 millimetres long. Many species are less than 30 millimetres and are commonly called froglets or toadlets. Most froglets live close to permanent water, such as the Flinders Ranges froglet, which lives in narrow spaces between boulders and rocks at the edge of creek beds. Toadlets generally do not need to live close to freestanding water. Many are dull brown or slate coloured. The southern corroboree frog is the most striking frog in Australia. It has boldly patterned stripes of glossy black and brilliant yellow, and each frog has its own pattern on the throat. The southern corroboree frog inhabits bogs and surrounding woodland in Kosciuszko National Park and is now on the brink of extinction. Distribution and status. Frogs are found Australia-wide, with the greatest diversity being in the east, particularly northeast Queensland, and southwest. Some species are widespread, but others are very localised. For example, the green tree frog is found across the entire north of the mainland, from the suburbs of Darwin to the gorges of Alice Springs, whereas the bawbaw frog is only found on Mount Bawbaw, Victoria. Although a few Australian frogs, such as the green tree frog, are flourishing in human environments, many species have suffered dramatic population decline since the 1980s. 15 species of Australian frogs are currently endangered. 12 are listed as vulnerable and 4 have become extinct. A particular concern is the disappearance of frogs from pristine habitats. Ecology. Frogs eat a wide range of invertebrates, creatures without backbones for those of you who don't know, including worms, insects such as backswimmers and damselfly larvae. Most tadpole species feed on small particles of organic matter, but some even eat other tadpoles. The best known and most common method of frog reproduction is through eggs laid in jelly and water, although some frog species lay their eggs on land. In most frog species, the adults do not care for their young, but at least 3 species take elaborate care of their offspring. The male marsupial frog on the high country of New South Wales-Queensland border carries the developing tadpoles in special pockets The eggs are laid in moist soil. By the 11th day, blind white tadpoles hatch and wriggle up the male frog's sides into his hip pouches to emerge as baby frogs 70 days later. So why, you may ask, is this happening? This I will now tell you. The first evidence that Australian frog populations were in serious decline was provided by the disappearance of two species, the southern day frog and the gastric brooding frog. However, the urgency of the situation, the global nature of frog declines, was not apparent until 1989. Although the factors responsible for the sudden fall in frog numbers are not clear, a number of human activities are harmful to frogs. Some of the most important include land reclamation by drainage in wetland areas, leading to loss of breeding sites, the conservation of temporary ponds, the conversion of temporary ponds to dams for stock use, resulting in trampling by animals such as cattle and destruction of surrounding sheltering sites. Insecticide and herbicide use in agricultural areas, particularly aerial spraying. Introduction of the mosquito fish, trout and other fish that prey on frog eggs and tadpoles. Increased salinity caused by land clearance. Most frogs are salt intolerant. Siltation from forestry operations. In 1998, a new threat was found to have spread through the frog populations. Since the 1970s, chytrid fungus is an infectious disease that infects amphibians worldwide. Chytrid fungus is known to have caused the death of a number of individual Australian frogs. So far, there is no agreement that it is the main cause of frog declines. Is recovery possible? Well, that's the answer to that is obvious. Of course it is. It is possible that frog declines have resulted from a combination of factors, which together have made a greater effect than they would have individually. Until an explanation is found, it will be difficult to reverse the trend and prevent further loss of frog species. But scientists, as I speak, are searching for a cause. In the meantime, individuals, community and conservation groups are helping conservation efforts by rehabilitating frog habitats and surveying populations and following recovery plans that have been